me, that's how powerful music is. I mean, it influenced me at a very young age, and I know it's going to influence me until, you know, they put me in the ground. Cool. My name is Mario Mina Jr., and I grew up on the Fort Belknap Reservation, but now I live here in Bozeman, Montana. I'm a musician, I'm a artist, a creative builder. I run a little company called Minor Glitch Electronics. Music is my everything. I'm enrolled in the Cheyenne River tribe in Eagle Butte, South Dakota, but I grew up in Fort Belknap, and there's a lot of pitfalls growing up on and near reservations, you know, border towns and poverty and all of that type of stuff. So you kind of have to have, you know, sharp edges and in order to survive in, you know, places like that. Thankfully, you know, my edges ain't too sharp. It was fun, it was scary, sad, all at the same time. Not very much to do. We didn't have like Walmarts or Kmarts or any of those big stores, so we had to get creative with like things like our toys and stuff like that.
Mad scientist. Just everything he does is just amazing, and he just like click.
I've built a cigar box guitar just like him, and every night he was getting messages from me like, hey, I broke this, how do I fix it? Hey, how do I do this? And super helpful and really encouraging too.
All those like old like blues like godfathers, you know, I remember hearing them like when I was young, and that just stuck with me. You know, some of the things that they were singing about and just like the tone of everything, you know, I was able to like relate to. You know, blues is like 4 on the floor, you know, just keeps that just drive. And if you think about like traditional like Native American music, you know, it's just 4 on the floor too. And I feel like maybe that's kind of why I like latched on to that, you know, it's because it was something similar to like my cultural like heritage and my cultural upbringing. Blues kind of needs a kick in the butt, so that's where like I like to throw in like, you know, my punk influences and stuff like that. Throw everything together, you know, ball it all up and just throw it at people in the crowd, see how they, you know, handle it, see what they think about it, you know. So far, you know, it's doing pretty good.
Everything's unique about Mario. He's hard to describe. He's a DIY, build what you gotta build, whatever it takes kind of a guy.
Hell on Highway 2, the important part, at least for me, that song is like singing parts about where I came from. Because anytime I tell people like where I grew up, you know, like, oh, I grew up on the High Line, and people will be like, oh, man. That was inspired by the story of Robert Johnson. The story of like somebody selling their soul to the devil to get better at playing guitar. I wanted to see if that actually was true, you know? And I actually went to the crossroads up on Highway 2. It was 8 Mile in Highway 2. And I, you know, being a silly kid, I just like stood there and waited, thinking, you know, the devil was gonna come take my soul. And never did. So I always make the joke that, you know, I wasn't good enough for, my soul wasn't good enough for him to show up.
See me running, hellhounds is on my tail. See me running, hellhounds is on my tail. Better hide, baby, they'll drag you straight to hell. They pulling my carriage full of fire and flames. They're pulling my funeral carriage full of fire and flames. Gotta keep on running, the devil knows my name. caught me at a crossroad up there on Highway 2. They caught me at a crossroad up there on Highway 2. They drumming down ahead. Lord have mercy on my wretched soul.
I got interested in building like musical instruments probably like 7 or 8 years ago. Back on the reservation, we'd go visit my grandma, and she'd always have like a bucket full of like these broken toys. All of a sudden the brain started kind of like moving, and things started to tick and things starting to work. This guy's missing his arm. What if I took the arm from this guy and I put it on this guy? And then all of a sudden I started creating like Frankenstein toys, and next thing I knew, like, you know, I had a whole like toy box full of like these broken toys. That moved on to like from like toys to like skateboards, and then finally like when I got into playing music, that's what I was doing with like guitars. People had broken guitars back up north. There was no music shop. Like people would break their guitars and just like, oh, this is trash, you know, throw it away. But I was like, no, give me that. I'll see what I can do with it. So I just collected broken guitars until eventually I started Frankensteining guitars and just putting things together. This is the first guitar that I built. His name is Howlin' Duke because that goes back to my cultural background. But my mom always told me is that everything has a spirit. Even inanimate objects have a spirit. And so after I built this, that's how I felt. The frets were made out of an old bass. And, you know, the tuning machines came from my first 6-string electric guitar was a Gibson Les Paul, like one of the really cheap models. This is my mom's old leather jacket from like the 70s, and then just like pop rivets, a bolt, an arcade button, an old cigarette lighter, my mom's dream catchers, and just random guitar parts, stickers, all of that. After I built this, it was like breathing life into what was once junk. This is kind of where it started, at least musically, with, you know, my builds, this little guy. When me and my wife moved to Bozeman, you know, we're still new to the area, new to like the music scene. I would play right underneath the Ellen Theater. I didn't have a job at the time because we just moved to Bozeman. That's kind of like how I was making my money, just trying to get things figured out. And so thankfully I used music as a vessel to help me get started here financially.
I just pulled out the money, gave it to him, and I'm like, go buy the parts that you need to make your amps or guitars. The world needs unique stuff like this. We don't need another person to stock shelves.
Busking was definitely a huge moment in my musical career because, I mean, you're starting from the streets. Now I get to play all over the Pacific Northwest. Sweet Honeybee was inspired by my beautiful wife, Twyla. We've been together since 2004. It's just a goofy little tune. People tend to get a kick out of it. I always make her sound like she's a mean lady, and I love her anyway, but she's the biggest sweetheart on the entire planet. I love that dang woman. So one goes out to my sweet honeybee.
honeybee. She moved with the grace of a goddess. She danced with the devil's hips. She has the voice of an angel. She kissed with the devil's lips. Oh baby, you are my queen, sweet honeybee. Sweet honeybee. Oh, you my sweet honeybee.
I like to create things that are remarkable and memorable and that are like conversation pieces. You know, if you don't have something that'll like allow people to remember, you know, who you are, they're gonna forget about you like that. The story of this, how these came about, I was driving around with my wife and I was like, oh, I got it. What if we can like die cut the PCB to build these amps to be in the shape of our state, you know, because I love Montana. She's like, oh, that's really cool, but what if you can somehow incorporate the different reservations in our state on your PCB? And oh my goodness, like a goosies, everything, because the circuit that I use for these amps requires 7 components, and there just so happen to be 7 reservations in our state. Each location of the component on this circuit board is in the location of the reservations on our state map. I don't like to rush things, you know what I mean? Like, I like to have like those moments where, like, wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, just like, aha, you know, and all of a sudden, like the next day, I'm working on a new project. I turned this gas mask into a guitar amplifier that you can, basically, it's battery powered, but you can wear it on your face while you're playing it, because I thought it was ridiculous. You know, I try to build things that I feel like that I can use throughout my set, and in doing so, down the road, you know, like, hey, I saw you at that show. Oh, it was the guy with the, you know, crazy guitar. What was his name? Oh, his name is Mario Minor Jr. Kind of directs them, you know, a lot of the time to like minor glitch. This is a little combo amp that I put inside of an ammo can, trying to figure my way out. Or weird. Sorry, I had a brain fart. And I'm back. I call this one the Res Dog Super Fuzz. The Supa is a little hat tipped to my buddy Christian Parrish, who's also Superman. Volume and the tone knobs I make out of 12 gauge shotgun shells. This is my little workshop. You know, it ain't much, but it's everything to me. You know, it's sometimes I don't come out here and build for quite a while and I feel kind of empty. But when I come back out here, it's just kind of like my you know, place of solitude. You know, my sanctuary. Input, output, power. Soldering. Close the doors and just turn on some music and you know, get to build and create something. I never throw anything away that people give me because, you know, I can use it. You know, even if it's like now or years from now. Yeah, there we go. Gundown at Sundown was inspired by old westerns. It's the idea of like, you know, the old west and, you know, gunfights and shootouts and stuff like that people tend to like because it's about killing people. You know, I'm sorry.
Say it works.
Now let's go. I cut him down at sundown. He knew his time had come. When that light left his eyes, I knew his days was done. His days were done. When they buried the man with his gun in his hand, his boots that was made for walking, carry him to the promised land. The promised land. As for me, they took me to them gallows. When I got there, I must say, knees they buckled, my palms they were shaking. Knees they buckled, my palms they were shaking. Felt the noose around my neck. I remember the things that I regret. And I regret. Oh, that I regret.
My main goal is to hopefully inspire others with my music. It goes back to like where I grew up. We didn't have everything like accessible to us, you know. So like, you know, like having, you know, my junk guitars or, you know, my suitcase bass drums, like things that I built on a visual level. I hope that when I'm playing for people and like, you know, younger folks that are trying to get into music but think you can't play good music unless you have good guitars, that would influence them that you can make music with pretty much anything.
He's the reason I started playing guitar. Seeing him those years ago, I'm like, man, what he's playing is really cool. I want to play stuff like that. So I picked up guitar and then talked to him. He's given me so many tips and so many pointers. And
for me, it's a sense of pride, just knowing that my ancestors survived all of these years and generations for me to be here. Seeing that and growing up with that in my mind, that kind of becoming like a mentality, that also like influences my drive. It gives me, I guess, a sense of purpose and a reason to be here and a reason to like keep pushing forward even when I feel like cards are stacked against me. And I just gotta rock and roll with the punches. You get knocked down, you know, you just gotta rock and roll with it. That's helped me out a lot throughout the years. Sounds like a simple little line, but for me that helps me get back up, dust myself off, and get back to it. There's a moment in my life where things kind of went south with my family. Reservation Blues was like my response to all of that, because when things went south, I just wanted to go home. And that's what that song's about, is just going back home and basically cutting somebody out of your life that you don't really want to, but you feel like you have to. For me, that's kind of one of the harder songs for me to sing, because there's a lot of unresolved issues, you know, that I still deal with. As musicians, we like to invoke a lot of emotions into how we play or how we sing. I've been able to channel those emotions through how I play my guitar. The guitar that I used for that song, it belonged to my grandfather. My uncle reached out to me and he's like, "Hey nephew, I have your grandpa's old guitar." And oh my goodness, when he told me that, like, I just got chills. And I'm like, oh my gosh, really? You have one of Papa's like old guitars? He's like, yeah, you can have it. I went and picked it up from my uncle, and it didn't have any strings on it. It didn't have any, like, you know, tuning machines or anything like that. I was like, you know what? This is perfect the way it is. You know, I mean, with how shabby and how goofy it looks and how rustic it looks, I don't want to make it better. I want to keep the aesthetic the way it is. And so now that's the guitar that I use to play on that song, and specifically just use it for that song.
Mario's gonna change the world. That's it. Somehow, some way, he'll do it.
If you have an idea in your head and you think it's crazy, just throw that out. It's not crazy. Just go with it, because I do that all the time. And I've been able to create a lot of crazy things, you know, and always rock and roll with the punches. Yeah.
Got a bottle full of whiskey, a tank full of gas. Sheriff's on my tail trying to... And I've been fighting all day through the blood and the toil. I ain't gonna stop until I'm dead and in the soul. Singing, oh, oh, mama, I'm coming home. Papa, you're on your own. Well, I've been driving all night to see that reservation line. Old Fort Belknap, you be on my mind. And I've been fighting all my life, and it ain't no life to choose. That's why I'm here singing the reservation blues. I'm singing, oh,